yet another session of Startup Buzz from the CII Western Region Startup Subcommittee. What makes this session unique is that for the first time, we are doing this in collaboration with the IWM. We have Ranjana chatting with Mansi for the next 40 odd minutes. For all those who are tuned in, I'm sure you'll have an exciting session ahead. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ranjana and Mansi.
Thank you so much, Ravi, for giving that introduction, and thank you, Ninad, for arranging this as well. We have a startup buzz every Thursday at 5 p.m. But this is the first time we are having jointly with CII IWN, and I'm the chair for the CII IWN Western Region. And we are very excited to have this session with Mansi, CEO and founder of Just Deliverables. And Mansi is a tech-enabled logistics Just Deliverables is a tech-enabled logistics platform powering the intra-city supply chains of restaurants, QSRs, and cloud kitchens across India. Over 6 years, she has built a scalable plug-and-play solution offering real-time visibility, cold chain integrity, and operational reliability, which is absolutely critical to modern food brands. Just Deliverables is backed by NAB Ventures and Carrot Capital. Driven by a mission to create meaningful impact, Mansi focuses on reducing food wastage, strengthening last mile food logistics, and enabling sustainable growth across the food and beverage ecosystem. Mansi is an alumna of ICT Mumbai and FMS Delhi, and previously has worked with IDFC, private equity, and the Tata Group, which is also somewhere where I had worked years back, gaining deep experience in investment strategy and new business development. Mansi, we are very, very honored to have you here, and it's such a pleasure speaking to you. And I've done some research on F&B, and it's so male-dominated. So I had to ask you this question. How did you get into logistics after private equity into such a male-dominated field of logistics, and what was the main driver? So looking forward to hearing from you, Mansi.
Thanks, Ranjana. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of this esteemed forum. Thank you, Ravi, Nicolette, Ninad, for having me share my journey. I think our journeys just got started, but whatever little bit I'm very happy to share. So Ranjana, Just Deliveries, as you correctly said, we are focused on logistics for the food and beverage industry. What got me started? I think it was an accidental initiation. I was actually delivering a cake, picking up a cake for my sister. And I realized that I was stuck in a traffic jam, the cake melted, and I was like, there is no delivery service for perishables. And kind of started with that idea, but of course pivoted later from B2C to B2B for a variety of reasons. But I think getting started was more accidental, but what kept me in is very different, because nobody really likes logistics or nobody really likes trucks. It's quite a tedious industry to work in. But I think what kept me in was the size of the market. India's F&B sector is $150 billion, and about 8 to 9% of that is spent on logistics. And 90% of that is run by unorganized transporters. So here is the opportunity for us to kind of organize this massively unorganized industry. And I think a lot of the training came from my private equity experience, where we were kind of trained to look for large structural inefficiencies. Today, cold chain logistics is a huge problem to solve. It's fragmented, it's unreliable. And therefore, looking at the size of the impact, I've kind of stayed in this industry and, trying to organize more and more of it bit by bit.
Thank you so much, Mansi, for that, introduction and taking up this question. But I think, as women, you have been very, very modest in saying what you have done. I've seen what the kind of clients that you have. It's like, I could, they're all the big names. You have, I think, over 120 clients, if I'm not mistaken, and some of them are the big names. And a lot of people from the F&B industry have asked for a recording of this who couldn't join this online. So I just wanted to share that with you. So I just wanted to ask you one more question. Was there a moment you almost said, this is not worth it? What stopped you from quitting? We go through it every time. It's not that I haven't gone through it or any one of us have not gone through it. So that moment comes at some point of time that I put in so much, but is there something that, I want to give it all up? But what held you back? Just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there were many moments in the first 3 years. So to give you context, I have actually bootstrapped this business for the first 4 years. And then we raised money about 3.5 years ago. So this is my 8th year in business. And I must tell you that the first 1,000 days are the most challenging for any business. Logistics humbles us. There are daily breakdowns, there's customer pressure. It's kind of a thankless job. If you're doing a fantastic job, nobody's out there saying, hey, you did a good job. But if one thing breaks, there's a lot of stress. There's cash flow stresses at all times as a startup. But I think I kind of committed to the horizon early on. I kind of saw the problem, I saw the opportunity. And the journey has made me very thick-skinned. Even today, it's not an easy journey. But just today, the framework's changed from, oh, wow, this is a learning opportunity, the complexity, just solving for complexities, building for scale. So the first 1,000 days for any startup, I think are challenging, and especially for people who come, from highly paid professional jobs. Like for me to leave a private equity job and to work in the Tatas, it was very easy for me to go back to the safety and security, but I just stick in for the first 1,000 days and things work out.
Thanks, Mansi. I think you were, brutally honest about that leaving a cushy job where, your salary gets credited on the last day of the month and come what may, it's very different from starting something from scratch and, worrying about, cash flows and looking into everything. It's not easy at all. It brings a lot of, innovation. It brings a lot of resilience in you. And I think that must have taught you all that. Did growth ever come at the cost of control, and was the trade-off intentional or accidental?
Absolutely intentional. I think very early I realized that if I wanted Just Deliveries to scale, it could not be founder-centric. There has to be a lot of delegation, and control has to be given to your next rung of leaders with accountability. The first 3 years was all about me building my senior leadership team, me understanding that every region has a P&L and every regional head is like a CEO. Today we've crossed the stage of 0 to 1. And as we are embarking on a 1 to 10 journey, I am encouraging my senior leadership to again delegate further. Every region cannot now be led by an individual. They have to create their leadership role. So I think if you're going to stick to control and obsess with perfection, then scalability is not possible. Delegation with accountability, a lot of coaching, the right culture, is very key to scale.
Yeah, Mansi, you've been, you said all the right things about delegation and having a good leadership team. I just saw it, and your leadership team looks awesome. And kudos to you having built that, because many founders are not able to let go, and they want to do that micromanagement, and that sort of prevents things from scaling up. I'm seeing a lot of questions on the chat. So what I'll do is I'll take a few from there and then we'll come back to our other questions as well. Mansi, if that's okay with you. So the first question that I see, that what was the toughest challenge in the first year? How did you overcome it with limited resources?
So in the initial years, I used to actually own my vehicles. We were an asset-heavy business model. We used to own our delivery vehicles. We used to have drivers, delivery boys on our rolls. And dealing with blue collar workers has a huge set of challenges. Even today, I believe that um, any company can choose to be asset heavy, and probably have higher margins, or they can choose to go asset light and probably share the margins but scale much faster. So initial days, I think it came with the challenges of managing fuel pilferages, driver absenteeisms, making them understand the sensitivity of food, versus delivering any other material. And gradually, as SOPs, as procedures were set in place, today we are asset light. So today we have training programs for our vendors and our driver partners. And there is a lot of rigor and attention given to that so that the quality of logistics happens successfully.
That's very good, Mansi, that you took a conscious decision to become asset light rather than being asset heavy, and that has helped you in your business. Um, was there a moment when you felt this could truly become a scalable business? What changed then? I mean, what was that aha moment maybe that you felt that this was a business which could be scaled, and and what has changed since then? I don't know if the question is clear, but you want to
Yeah,
take it?
yeah. No, I think, actually, I was part of the Goldman Sachs 10K Women program. And one of the professors there, mentors there, also kind of encouraged me because he understood that, the problem that we are solving, bootstrap just in Mumbai, is a problem relevant all over India. So I think that kind of nudge came from there, where I realized that since this is a problem across, we could actually look at raising money and actually look at scaling the business now that we've understood the pain points, we've understood the method of execution. So that point came sometime around 2022. And since then, we went from owning about 18 trucks, one city operation, um, about 18 lakhs in monthly revenue, to now in about three and a half years, we are running close to 300 vehicles. We are present in 5 cities. We have 6, 7 cold storages, working with about 130 brands, and our monthly revenues upwards of 4.5 crore. So the last 3.5 years, we've seen massive growth, fueled, of course, by capital, and the capital enabling us to hire the best team possible.
Okay. Thanks, Mansi, and I'm glad you mentioned about the Golden Sachs program. Incidentally, I think it's a very good program. My niece is who's a founder and the CEO of a elder care home. She's currently doing this at IIM Ahmedabad right now. So yeah, so it brings back some memories. So how did you decide which cities to expand into first, and what criteria mattered most? You have
Very simple.
expanded, right, across 8
Yeah,
cities,
yeah.
and yeah.
So it's very simple. 80% of the consumption of the demand happens in the top 8 to 10 cities. So we went very logically. We entered Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, which are the key consumption centers. The maximum QSRs, the maximum quick com sales happen in these cities. So these were just natural first choices. And after that, we entered Lucknow because we realized that Lucknow has a very large dairy industry. Also, what we see is that where do our key customers want us to grow? Where are they kind of doing business? Because once they've experienced our service and the value we bring to them, then they also encourage us to start our services in other cities. So demand, how large the market can be, where can we get anchor customers to get started? Those are the main driving reasons for launching a city.
Okay. I'll take one more question before we deep dive into our questions as well. What I had, thought I'll ask you, and it will help the others. F&B logistics is uniquely complex. What are the non-negotiables when handling food supply chains in India? So
for food supply chains, time, temperature, hygiene.
yes.
These three are absolutely non-negotiable. And as much as startups would want to do jugaad, right? I always say that there is good jugaad and there's bad jugaad. So in the logistics and supply chain, you cannot do jugaad. right? There are certain processes, certain SLAs that you have to comply with. So we always believe that on time and right temperature is absolutely crucial. And with food logistics, hygiene plays a big role. You see, you enter a restaurant, the front end experience is beautiful. But if you ever see the way the products or the raw materials or the semi-cooked products brought into the restaurant, you'll be shocked. And today, any dead cockroach or dead rat found somewhere can become a nightmare, can almost shut down a restaurant. So there's a lot of awareness that we are bringing to F&B entrepreneurs, while absolutely realizing that running an F&B business in India is not easy. And a lot of foodpreneurs are actually forced to use jugaad. They carry their products in autos and in dirty tempos and all of that. But there's a cost to doing that. So what we are trying to do at JD is create such deep distribution networks in every city that we make it cost efficient and SLA-led logistics for the food brands.
That's a very good point, Mansi, which you have said that SLA-led logistics. I think that's something quite unique in this sector, because SLAs or a complete SOP may not be always available, but you will be the best person to say that how it's changing these days. I wanted to, ask you that how much of scaling was smart strategy? And you mentioned about jugaad, so how much of it was sheer jugaad? So I've used your word and put it in the question. So how much was that?
Um, I think in the last 3.5 years, having institutional investors on our cap table, there's been a lot of benefit in that sense. One is that the whole move from asset heavy to asset light was also suggested by one of our investors. And now it is about how large the market is and how soon can we kind of capture it. And of course, capital helps a lot because I have founders also who don't raise capital, and today they may not be able to build the right leadership teams. They may not be able to invest necessarily in the teams that help them grow faster. Having said that, I think we've also been very careful to not grow at all costs. Logistics is an industry where, without operational depth, you can actually create silent failures that show up years later. So I would say strong growth, at the right pace, uh, very strategically is important. And jugaad in the right ways, like, if it's about building brand visibility, if it's about, getting speaker slots in certain sessions, I think that to that extent, it's helpful.
Yes, Mansi, what you said, the right jugaad is important. Jugaad is not something that has to be looked at in a derogatory way, but the right jugaad to make it, easier or fix a problem, I think that always helps. Um, what was the most expensive mistake you made while handling just deliverables? Whether it might have been financial or emotional or anything that you might want to share with all of us.
So at Just Deliveries, I think financially raising less capital than we should have early on. I think I would say in hindsight, I would have probably raised more. Um, Today, we are building our own tech. We are building an Uber-like app. But I think we underestimated how important it is to build proprietary tech in logistics early on. And I think that was also a function because we raised less money, we kind of postponed our tech development. But in hindsight, I think I would raise more, I would build out our tech first. Emotionally, I think, as founders, we sometimes carry a lot personally, we could have, shared the load earlier. So recently, about a year back, I have elevated Pradeep as co-founder and COO, and I just see how much more firepower and how much more bandwidth that gives me. But I think most founders learn it the hard way to kind of share the load earlier on, but with the right team.
Thank you. I think that was very honest what you said, Mansi, and it's really being very encouraging speaking to you. I'll take some questions from the chat. That how do you balance speed, cost, and quality in last mile and cold chain logistics?
It's all about transparency, visibility. In logistics, I'll give you a simple example. Even the unorganized transporters, even they have temperature trackers and GPS devices on their systems. But one thing is having that thing and not acting upon the data, right? So there's always post-mortem happening. Client complains, then they download the report, then they see, "Arey, हाँ, temperature abuse ho gaya," you know. What we realized early on is real life tracking. And not only are we getting the data, we are acting upon it. So we don't expect our brands to be tracking temperature, right? They've got other things to do. We have a control tower that's built that's actually tracking every vehicle. Earlier on, when we had 30, 40 vehicles, we could do it manually. Then we realized we need to have AI powered systems, right? So now we get alerts when a temperature breach is beyond the specified range, or if the vehicles are moving towards the pickup location. So I think technology plays a very big role in sectors like logistics. And without adopting and embracing technology, scale is very difficult.
Okay. I think you've said it right. I think there are a host of questions coming in. So let me see. What kind of talent is critical in logistics startups, and how do you build a culture of accountability on the ground? I think it's a
So cold
fair
chain
question.
logistics is actually a very small industry with very little talent there. And that's simple because logistics is jhanjat ka kaam. Nobody really wants to work in logistics. So I think having ESOPs as a startup, having the wealth creation opportunity, especially for the early members of the team, the founding members of the team, that's enabled us to really attract the right talent. I also read a book called WHO, WHO. It's a book on how to identify and onboard A-team players. I would encourage everyone to read that book. That's been really helpful for me. Regarding accountability, it's very simple. We set up the business plan in discussion with our lead investor. And whatever we've planned for the coming year, all of that, all of those metrics, it could be financial metrics, it could be city launches, it could be SLA metrics. All of that is then in conjunction with the key managerial people. All of that is converted into KRAs. So every KMP or core team member is accountable for one part of the overall plan. And everyone's working in so much sync together. There is no subjectivity. Every quarter we review the KRAs. There's course correction that happens. There's coaching that happens. And at the end of the year, there is so much objectivity that there is no room for any discontent as well.
Thanks, Mansi. I think I think you've sort of said a lot about quality control and KRAs, and I think that has been one of our success factors as well in this business. How do you manage uncertainty and risk in a capital and operations heavy business like logistics? The risks are always there in every business, but here there are, of course, more risks. And of course, now you've made it asset light, but to your outsource partners, how are you managing the risks?
That's a great question. And I'll give you a simple example. In logistics, you have intercity logistics where you're carrying materials, say ice cream from Bangalore to Delhi. And you have intracity where you're delivering, say, from a central kitchen to outlets or from DC to dark stores. Keeping in mind risk and uncertainty, we have stuck to intracity logistics, where even if a vehicle breaks down, if you don't open the reefer door, the temperature is maintained for X number of hours, which means we are 100% sure we can send a backup vehicle and we can ensure that there's no damage to the product. So I think risk and uncertainty has also dictated to us the segments in which we want to operate. Because if you're sending ice cream from Bangalore to Delhi and if the vehicle breaks down midway, what do you do? So I think it is absolutely crucial in industries like ours. And it's very advisable to keep that in mind while you're scaling up so that the growth can be on a very strong framework.
Thanks, Mansi. So you must be having a very networked kind of a system in which if something breaks down,
Yes.
so in a certain time frame before it goes bad, you are able to send a backup, right?
Correct.
That's my understanding. Okay. Um, What advice would you give founders looking to scale operational business beyond metro cities? I think that's a good question because you have gone beyond metro cities. You've gone to Lucknow. That's not a metro city. So you can give your examples from your own story, Mansi.
So I always believe that don't scale cities just for the sake of doing so. First make sure that you are doing enough or you've built scale within the cities you're operating in. See, even today for us, we are present in 5 cities and maximum we'll go to 10 to 12 cities. A lot of people say you can go to 30 cities, you can go to 300 cities. But be wise about this. Look at where the demand is. If today, if 80% of the demand's in the top 10 cities, why would I go and set up, more cities? So be know your why. Know why are you going to another city? Like, don't go for vanity metrics, like just having a huge number of city base, or just because one client is telling you set up this for me, you run after that. And secondly, I think it all boils down to the unit economics. So keep in mind the P&L of the city that you're working in, because there are overhead costs. There is even a cost of cultural integration, of spreading too wide. So for us in our business model, the deeper distribution networks we create, the more utilization of vehicles, the more efficiencies, the more profitable the business becomes. So look at those metrics in your business and then take a call on expansion.
Very well said. Um, how do you build resilience into the supply chain to handle disruption, seasonality, or demand spikes? I'm sure you go through that all the time. Like you mentioned about ice cream. So in the summer months, there'll be more demand. For some other goods, there'll be lesser demand. So you must be knowing that. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So now that we've been in business for 7 to 8 years, we understand the spikes very well. So for instance, we are working with almost all the big ice cream players, and we start their summer planning in November,
Oh.
because there is such a shortage of cold storage space and reefer vehicles in summers for those 2 or 3 months in India, that you have to plan for the summers with your customers in November, December, and accordingly kind of, get your minimum guarantees for your pallets, for your vehicles, so that they have a very smooth run. Now with quick commerce coming in, there's a lot of volatility in demand. We have seen that for our ice cream clients, if they've predicted X sales in the summers, they've actually gone to 3X. They run one marketing campaign on quick commerce, and suddenly instead of plugging in 2 vehicles in a city, you have to plug in 5 vehicles in a city. So it's our endeavor to make sure that whatever they've planned, we can fulfill. It's a real partnership in that sense. So it's a lot of engaging, it's a lot of in-depth conversations, and it's a lot of planning with your B2B customers that prepares you for these seasonality variations.
So, Mansi, is a follow-up question. Like you said, it might be 3x. So you also might be telling them, advising them that what you've planned is little low, so you should plan a little higher, because you have to also plan your operations in that way. So that's what you
Yes.
meant by partnership, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. What role do SOPs and standardization play when your operations are spread across geographies? You did answer that to quite an extent, but maybe you can just add a little bit to that as well.
It's very easy to say that SOPs are important, implementation is important. If I'm very honest, it's a struggle for most companies. And that's because SOPs are also evolving, right? Today we are building our own tech, our SOPs will completely change. So we are at that journey where we are not an established company growing at 20% year on year. We are probably growing 20% month on month. So I believe for us, SOPs keep changing, and as much as we try to kind of systemize and get it adopted, the world's changing. I mean, our systems are changing very fast. So it's important. And what we do is we have like every month we have 2 calls, right? Where we are talking about what's breaking. We are recording every single issue that happens anywhere in any city. And we are discussing why that happened and what's the solution so that that issue doesn't happen again. issues will come, problems will come. But when we discuss it as a forum, we are all preparing for it so that in our cities, if this thing happens, what have we done so that it doesn't recur again? So it's a constant journey, but keeping an eye to the detail, keeping an eye to what's breaking and figuring a solution around that is absolutely crucial for operationally heavy businesses.
Thank you, Mansi. And since you told about tech, tech is evolving. I have one question on tech. Investors love tech stories. So, how did you convince them that infrastructure and trucks can be venture scale? So it's a little
That's a great
different, but
question. That's a super question. I think in my early days of fundraising, I've been rejected, I think 45, 47 times, right? And earlier on, I used to be like, oh my God, am I not building something right? But then it's very important to realize what you're building. So we are solving a real pain point. We are kind of building a real business. Okay, we are not building a business that's going to exponentially grow, or that's like a tech business that's going to be valued at 8 or 10x. So it's very important to understand what we are building. We are building for scale. We have picked up a problem statement which has got huge market potential, but there will always be certain VC funds who will not find it interesting. So identifying also that which fund or which investor has what thesis and is it aligned with what you're building is very important. Otherwise, you just land up wasting a lot of time and you land up being dejected because you're not approaching the right investors.
okay, that makes sense. Could you share a problem that was unsolvable and how did you solve it? I'm sure you'll have many examples to say, so whatever comes to your mind.
Um, Unsolvable, I don't know, but very recently, one of our customers called me to office along with the account manager, and told us, I'm ending your contract. And I was like, okay, what happened? He's like, yeah, you all don't have the time to come and meet me, And it was a huge learning for us, because that's when I realized that the kind of scale and the kind of contract sizes that we work with, it's very important to do like a quarterly business review with our customers. So I think at every stage and at every journey, there's so much to learn and there's so much to get stronger and better. So now we've kind of identified that for our top 20 customers, we're going to have quarterly business reviews. So though my team is very senior and I believe that they can handle these conversations, but yet I think everyone expects, the CEO or the COO also to come and kind of be present in the quarterly presentations, at least the top 20 clients.
That's very well said, Mansi, because that happens, I think, in all businesses that unless you have some, contact with your customers, you wouldn't know what the pain points are. And sometimes they won't just say it. And at the end of it, they might say, we are not renewing. So it's also a
Absolutely
learning
right.
curve at every point of time that we go through. And would you scale faster today or slower and stronger if you had to do it all over again?
Um, I would definitely, if I had to do it all over again, definitely strong. I mean, we've scaled, I would say, slow and strong, and that's really held us in good stead. In logistics, it's very easy to have huge receivables. It's very easy to have bad debts. There are deeply funded companies that have shut down because they've not had a control on their cash flows. So
Mm-hmm.
what we've done right is we've scaled strong. We may have scaled a little slow in typical terms. So if I had to do it all over again, I would not compromise on scaling strong. But yes, I would probably take on more senior leadership earlier on, to also get that speed in.
Good thing. In logistics, usually that's our impression that margins are thin. So how did you compromise on even when cash was tight? I'm sure you mentioned something that sometimes cash flow was a problem, but at the same time you didn't want to say no to a client. So how did you manage sort of you know the
Yeah,
both the
yeah.
sides?
Yeah, you're right. Logistics is a challenging industry where margins are thin. and it is a volume game as well. So for us, we have done two things right. One is we've understood that it's all about asset utilization, which comes from deep distribution networks. Other thing that we did very right is that we never took on business for revenue. We never moved for vanity metrics. And we are very fortunate to have a set of investors who also believe in that. So for us, it's the journey now is about how can we actually beat, the typical low margin outcome in logistics industry? How can we do that? And that is through a variety of measures to really stand out and to really kind of make this a very profitable business.
Thanks, Mansi. One of the, since is asking that as a woman founder in logistics, what unique challenges or advantages have you experienced? It's a little loaded, but I'm sure you can answer that. So,
Oh, I think there are just advantages,
okay.
I think the ecosystem is perfect for anyone to launch a startup. And I think women founders bring a lot of empathy, a lot of different leadership skills, which is very important to nurture and grow a team in the early days. I don't think there is too much, there's any generic differentiation. But I did realize that without like trying to typecast, but I think there is a clear difference between women founders and male founders when it comes to raising capital. Women founders tend to be less aggressive or tend to talk more realistically, right? If they want to deliver 200, they'll say, we'll get to 180, you know? And so I think in those terms, I think it's important for women founders also to get a little bit, more aggressive, because sometimes this practical or careful approach can kind of backfire. But otherwise, there is absolutely no difference whether you're a woman founder, you're a male founder in any industry today, because the ecosystem is out there to support you.
Very well said, Mansi. I think women all over, we tend to, undercommit and over-deliver. But when you're raising capital, that doesn't work. Afterwards, yes, when they see you in action, that works very well. But in the beginning, undercommitting and over-delivering is not the approach to take. Completely on you on that. Um, Another question is, what part of the logistics value chain you feel is still broken in India, and what could be fixed? And some of the things which you have fixed in Just Deliverables, which can be something which others can learn from. It can be a case study, actually, of what you have done.
So at Just Deliveries, we are very clear that the B2B last mile is the most broken part of the system. Today, if you look at it, all QSRs, cafe chains, right? We work with Blue Tokai, Third Wave, ITC. They are all working with, they're either having to own their own logistics or they're having to work with the unorganized transporters just to deliver products from the central kitchen to the outlet. That is the most broken piece, and that is the most expensive piece. So we are organizing that piece of the ecosystem. We still feel that deliveries from, say, one city to the other city are fairly organized, but the intra-city logistics, which is so time sensitive, which is so temperature sensitive, and every day in, day out, 365 days a year, you have to ensure that the outlets get the material at the right time and the right temperature. So that is a problem we are solving for. And we're really wanting to let brands let go of that headache. Even today, brands have to manually keep calling up, "Gaadi nahi pahuncha, kya hai?" Drivers, the commercial drivers in India are so underpaid. So as a result, they try to make an extra buck by turning off the reefer to save diesel money. And that leads to a lot of food wastages. So by constant monitoring, we are ensuring that the products are reaching at the right temperature. And it's our vision to help food brands that logistics should be a growth enabler. It should not be a growth constraint. That is our vision at Just Deliveries.
I've understood one thing: temperature, time, efficiency are very, very crucial in this business. There are a few more questions. We have about 5 minutes, 6 minutes more. So I'll quickly go over them. What are the biggest cost leaks founders should watch out for while scaling logistics operations?
Um, I think you should invest in technology early on, and building the right team.
Okay, very good. How do you decide when to invest aggressively versus when to slow down and consolidate?
Do not think twice when you're hiring the right person. And in every other aspect, like I've been very guarded when it comes to, bare minimum spends on marketing or customer acquisition.
Okay. What leadership habits helped you scale yourself alongside the business? So I think that's something for you
Oh,
personally to say.
yeah, I think I read a lot, and I read books like The Hard Thing About Hard Things, The Diary of a CEO, who, in terms of leadership hiring, I think it's extremely important to ask yourself two questions. One is, how do I evolve myself to be the leader for the next phase of growth? If you're going to do the same things the same way, then you're not going to grow. And second question, somebody recently asked me is, would you invest in your own business? You know, and I think if we keep answering these two questions, we'll keep evolving and making sure that we are not the bottleneck for growth for our own business.
Very well said. Very well said. How can ecosystems better support women founders in capital and operations heavy sectors? You did answer that in many ways, but maybe a couple of lines.
No, I think there is absolutely a lot of support, and it's all now down to the women founders to go out there and make use of everything.
Okay. And based on your life and advice, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs so that even they have just deliverables of their business dreams? I think I'm reading it right. But
I would say just three things. One is it's it's a very tough journey. Okay. So pick a problem that can actually have a huge impact. Okay. If you're going to be there day in, day out, solve something that can become big. That is number one. Number two, know that the first 3 years is going to be challenging, but stick in. And number three is build a fantastic team.
very well said, Mansi. Mansi, I have one last question for you. Is that when you thought you mentioned about it when you started Just Deliverables? Did you do a lot of market research? Did you think that there was a shortage of this? What was that aha moment when you thought, I want to go into this field? You did answer it, but I just wanted to reiterate that before we sort of end the conversation.
I think because I worked with IDFC Private Equity for the first 4 years of my life, where we were actually investing private capital into building ports, bridges, a lot of infrastructure projects. I think very early on, I realized that infrastructure in India is a gap, and any investment into that can lead to a lot of gains. Having said that, I think while that shaped my thought, the problem statement when I encountered it in real life, literally picking up a cake for my sister, I think that was the moment when I realized that, this is what we can do. But of course, from the problem statement identification, from starting, most businesses pivot at least one or two times. So we kind of pivoted very early because we saw that home deliveries, B2C deliveries, the unit economics would not work out. B2B is where the unit economics makes sense.
Okay. And just one last word of advice, which is quite something which we all do at the end of the session. That what would you give to anyone wanting to start a logistics firm or any business, as being a founder or a co-founder or just thinking of starting something? What would you like to tell them?
I think that there is no better experience than starting up something of your own. I think if you are deciding between investing in an expensive MBA or starting something of your own, do the latter, because you learn everything very quickly. but don't start just for the sake of starting. Pick a problem that can be big, that can be meaningful. Don't sit in your room, go out there, network, exchange ideas, talk to people, bounce off things, don't stay in a cocoon. And once you get started, then build, keep going up. If you're going to do the manual small work, then you're not going to ever scale. You have to keep delegating and moving on to the next stage.
Thanks, Mansi. It was so wonderful speaking to you. We learned so much, and seeing your passion for just deliverables, I'm certain that it'll go to great, great heights. And congratulations once again for what you have done. And thank you very much for coming on, the joint session between CII Startup Buzz and CII IW and Indian Women Network. For all the viewers, I know we are virtual, but a big round of applause for Mansi and for Ninad and Ravi and the entire CII team. And I just wanted to remind you all that every Thursday at 5 p.m. we have the Startup Buzz series, and please log into that if it's of interest to you. And each time there's a new story to be told. And Mansi, your story was so enlightening, so invigorating. I have no words to say how much I enjoyed this conversation with you, and looking forward to many more in the days ahead. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Ranjana. Thank you very much for being such a patient audience. It was great interacting. Thank you.
Thank you.